David Kinsley's Tantric Visions. We have Ma Chinnamasta up there. Chinnamasta generally is not casually approached, and some texts indicate that this might be because of the inherent dangers of her worship. The Bhairava Tantra, as cited in the Shakta Pramoda, says in reference to Chinnamasta's worship, whoever performs this worship without meditating on Chinnamasta, the goddess will sever one's head and drink one's blood. The Shakta Pramoda also distinguishes between the worship of Chinnamasta by renouncers and householders, implying that there are different styles of worship and that renouncers pursue a more heroic path. Indeed, many people have told me that only those of particularly heroic nature dare worship Chinnamasta. The Shakti Samgama Tantra stipulates which path is appropriate for worshipping each of the Mahavidyas. Chinnamasta is to be worshipped by the left-handed path alone. The only other goddess to be so worshipped is Bhairavi. The others are to be worshipped by the right-handed path or by both paths. A consistent theme in tantric text is that only those with the nature of the Vira hero are qualified to undertake sadhana of the left-handed type, and that those who are not qualified should not attempt it. Left-handed worship of Chinnamasta involves sexual intercourse with a woman who is not one's wife, according to both the Mahodadi, Mantra Mahodadhi, and the Shakta Pramoda. The Shakta Pramoda also says that in making fire offerings to Chinnamasta, one should offer her meat and wine at night. This is a new candle from Costco. Okay, in conclusion, Chinnamasta has few shrines or temples and is probably worshipped in tantric fashion by a particularly brave person who is bold enough to engage this fearsome deity. Okay, end of chapter on Chinnamasta. Next we have Bhairavi, the fierce one. She has a luminous complexion like 1,000 rising suns. She wears silken red clothes and a garland of severed heads. Her breasts are smeared with blood. She has 4 arms. In 2 of her hands she holds a rosary and a book. And with her 2 other hands she makes the gestures of assurance and conferring boons. She has 3 eyes that resemble large lotuses. On her forehead is the half moon, and on her head a jeweled crown. Hasib, hello, hello. She smiles. She is brilliant like the rising sun and wears the moon crest on her head. She has 3 eyes and is lovely in her various ornaments. She is the destroyer of enemies. She has 10 hands and carries a trident, a small drum, sword, club, bow, arrows, noose, goad, book, and rosary. She is seated on a corpse throne. Okay. There's a hymn he quotes from South Asia. You are so subtle and the gods cannot describe you. You are the source of the world and have no beginning. You have 3 eyes, a beautiful face, and 4 hands in which you hold a book and a rosary and with which you make the sign of assurance and giving favors. You are the source of speech of everything graceful, the source of the universe itself. You wear the moon as a crest in your hair and have a white complexion like the autumn moon. You hold a jar of amrita and make the gesture of teaching. When Shiva and Vishnu are worshipped, you are there to be worshipped as well. You are also Brahma, where speech abides. You are the nature of consciousness. You control the vital air, and by granting yogic powers, you defeat the 6 kinds of passions: lust, greed, delusion, intoxication, jealousy, and anger. Rishab, hello, Keseho. Bariya Keseho Rishab. Shiva, having obtained half of your body, was then empowered to create the world. The world cannot be created without you. After worshipping you, the wives of the Siddhas, heavenly beings, become red-eyed because of drinking too much wine. They sing your names along with the Kinnadas, heavenly beings. We worship you as the coiled serpent Kundalini goes to the city of Shiva after passing along the Sushumna Nadi, making all the lotuses bloom, an allusion to the awakening and rising of the Kundalini, representing consciousness. We worship you who are bathed with a flow of nectar. You are the source of all Vedas. Your form is consciousness itself. What's this about? This is about Mahavidya. You are the creator of the world in the form of sound and meaning. You maintain the world by your power as the sun, and you dissolve the world in your form as fire. Narayani, Gauri, and Saraswati are also your names. This hymn emphasizes the cosmic aspect of Bhairavi, not her fearsome nature, nor her role as the consort of Bhairava, a fierce form of Shiva. The hymn primarily describes Bhairavi in a position of cosmic preeminence and overseeing or empowering the three male deities usually associated with creation, maintenance, and destruction, or assuming these roles herself. She is not a consort but is independent of the gods and transcends them. This is a common emphasis in many goddess texts and hymns, especially those pertaining to the Mahavidyas. The hymn also emphasizes her beauty and power to cause excitement. Heavenly beings are intoxicated by worshiping her, and her face and form are described as beautiful. On the other hand, she is said to control passion as well as arouse it. Through yoga, she gives the power to overcome worldly passions. She is also cast in the role of revealer and teacher. She creates the Vedas, the source of all knowledge and wisdom. She is shown making the gesture of teaching and is said to carry a book. The hymn also identifies Bhairavi. Yes. The hymn also identifies Bhairavi with Kundalini Shakti and thereby with the inherent power of awakened consciousness that is cultivated in spiritual practice. In this respect, she is affirmed to exist inwardly as the inherent spiritual power that can be aroused in an individual by means of meditation or other spiritual techniques or rituals. This aspect of Bhairavi complements her transcendent cosmic aspect, lending her an intensely immanent presence. At the close of the hymn from the Sharada Tilaka, we hear of Bhairavi's destructive aspect. At the end of the cosmic cycle, in her form as fire, she dissolves the world. As the universe-ending fire, she resembles Shiva in his form as the destroyer. Her destructive nature, though, minor, is a minor theme in the Sharada Tilaka hymn. Some recent interpretations, however, focus on the name the Fierce One, on her association with fierce forms of Shiva, and on her often fierce appearance. One scholar interprets Bhairavi as a female version of Shiva in his destructive form as Kala Bhairava, in which he punishes people both living and dead. He notes that Kala Bhairava is closely associated with Yama, Lord of Death, who lives in the south, and says this is why Shiva is also known as Dakshinamurti, whose form faces southward. Kala Bhairava's consort, he says, is Tripura Bhairavi, who is constantly occupied with destroying the three worlds. Her name thus means she who is fierce in the three worlds. Creation and destruction are the two essential aspects of the universe, which is continually subject to their alternating rhythms. The two are equally dominant in the world, and indeed depend upon each other in a symbiotic fashion. Bhairavi embodies the principle of destruction. Tripura Bhairavi arises or becomes present when the body declines and decays, which is natural, inevitable, and irresistible. She is also evident in self-destructive habits such as eating tamasic foods, drinking liquor, which wear down the body and mind. She is present, he says, in the loss of semen, which weakens males. Anger, jealousy, and other selfish emotions and actions strengthen Bhairavi's presence in the world. Righteous behavior, conversely, make her weaker. In short, she is an ever-present goddess who manifests herself in, embodies the destructive aspects of the world. Destruction, however, is not always negative, this interpreter says. Creation cannot continue without it. This is most clear in the process of nourishment and metabolism, in which life feeds on death. Creation proceeds by means of transformed energy given up in destruction. What is the name of this book? Tantric Visions of the Divine Feminine, republished by the University of California Press 2023. Please buy it. Thank you very much. A second contemporary author interprets Bhairavi in a similar vein. According to this writer, Bhairavi is identical with Kalaratri, a name often associated with Kali that means black night of destruction and refers to a particularly destructive aspect of Kali. She is also identified with Mahapralaya, the great dissolution at the end of the cosmic cycle, during which all things, having been consumed by fire, are dissolved in the formless waters of pre-creation. She is the force that tends towards dissolution. This force, therefore, which is actually Bhairavi herself, is present in each person as one gradually ages, weakens, and finally dies. Destruction is apparent everywhere, and therefore Bhairavi is present everywhere. Yes, you have spelled his name correctly. Bhairavi's fierce, terrible, or destructive nature is emphasized in some of her descriptions. For example, she is said to wear a garland of freshly severed heads that gush blood over her breasts and to be seated on a corpse. This aspect is also mentioned fairly often in her thousand-named hymn from the Vishvasara Tantra, where she is called extremely terrible, Kalaratri, fierce one, Chandi, she who creates fear and awe, who has a terrible face, who has the face of a ghost, who arises from the body of a corpse, who likes blood, who drinks blood, who destroys the body, and who is the cause of Mahapralaya. This hymn also often identifies her with the sun and fire, which may have destructive functions but are not specifically mentioned as destructive forces when she is associated with them. She is said to dwell in cremation grounds and to have a corpse seat, Shavasana. Her thousand-name hymn in the Shakta Pramoda says that she sits on a corpse, eats the flesh of a corpse, is fond of flesh, drinks blood, and destroys those who criticize the offering of blood. Perhaps the Vaishnavas. I'll download the book. It looks interesting. Good luck. She is also called Kotarakshi, whose eyes are sunken, probably from being emaciated, which associates her with the terrible form of Kali and Chamunda, who are often described as having sunken eyes. In short, Bhairavi is strongly associated with destruction, is often said to have a fierce, terrible, frightening nature, and is fond of meat and blood. In Nepal, the Bhairavi of Nawakot is believed annually to disseminate malaria in the Trishuli Valley lowlands, sparing only those who adequately appease her. In these respects, she fulfills the promise of her name, Bhairavi, the Fierce One. Bhairavi has several distinct forms, some of which have separate mantras and yantras in tantric manuals. Other goddesses among the Mahavidyas have more than one form, but none has as many as Bhairavi. The Tantra Sara describes 12 separate forms of Bhairavi, and taken together they suggest a multifaceted goddess, a goddess who is certainly not limited to being the embodiment of destruction. The names of several of her forms stress that she gives a range of blessings. As Sampatprada Bhairavi, she gives riches. As Shakala Siddhi Bhairavi, she is the one who grants every perfection. As Vidvamsini, Bhairavi, she destroys all fears. As Chaitanya Bhairavi, she gives awakened consciousness. As Bhuvaneshwari Bhairavi, she is present in creation and engenders growth. As Kameshwari Bhairavi, she kindles desire and grants gratification. And as Annapurneshwari Bhairavi, she gives food. These last two forms deserve some comment as they present a strong contrast to the destructive aspect. Kameshwari denotes a form of Bhairavi who is mistress of Kamadeva, the god of desire, namely Rati, who is depicted here as well. As Kameshwari, she embodies desire and lends to creation its distinctive quality of being pervaded by the mutual attraction of the genders. One of her dhyana mantras, that of Sampat Prada Bhairavi, says that she is intoxicated with her youth, and most descriptions of her, despite her associations with destruction, say that she is attractive, young, and shapely. Bhairavi's association with sexual desire and fulfillment is mentioned often in her hymn. In the Shakta Pramoda, for example, she is called she who is fond of semen, she who is worshipped by those who worship with semen, she who is dear to Kama, who dwells in the yoni. That is from Vishvasara Tantra. So there's like two main texts. Okay, at one point, the Tantra Sara says that Bhairavi is the consort of Kamadeva and stipulates that the adept imagine and interiorize the 5 different forms of the love god with the corresponding 5 forms of Rati, his consort. Bhairavi is also worshipped through Bhana Nyasa. Nyasa is the ritual by which means of one divinizing the body with mantras and mudras. In Bhana Nyasa, the adept places the 5 flower arrows of Kama in the fingers of both hands and empowers himself or herself in the arts of love. Okay, and here we have an image. It's kind of explicit, so not safe for work. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am Navajo. I'm in US. Okay. Shout out Navajos. You're welcome to practice Tantra.